Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of March 13th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams. Here. Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Okay, in your package, you have several sets of minutes. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read them. Are there any corrections, alterations? Is there approval? Approve?
So I move that we accept the minutes from the work session on February 10th, the business meeting on February 13th, and the budget retreat on February 14th.
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Okay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Okay. Have no matters of special privilege or public hearings today, so we'll move right on into reports. And first is the monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just a few general comments before we jump into the charts. Our general revenue, general fund revenue year-to-date as of February was $27.9 million compared to last year of $27.5 million. So about a 1.5% increase over last year. However, the revenue this year represents 54% of budget compared to 59% last year. And then our general fund expenditures are in line with budget. They're at 62% of budget this year compared to 65% of budget last year. Okay. So the first thing I want to look at is our real estate tax revenue. Right now, we are about 7.7% increase compared to last year this time, and at 51% of budget. When we look at personal property tax revenue, we show a 1% decrease compared to last year, and we're at 67% of budget compared to 68% last year. So running pretty close and pretty much where we expect to be at this point in time. We do pick up a good bit of personal property between now and year end. And then our business property tax year to date is a 3.9% increase compared to last year. We're at 105% of budget compared to 104% of budget last year. And in our lodging tax or room tax, the month of February was 11% decrease compared to last February. However, year to date, we are showing a 2.6% increase compared to last year, year to date. And then in meals tax, for the month of February, we show a 4% decrease compared to last February for the month. Year to date, we're showing a 5% increase. So in both of those, we were moving pretty strongly and until we hit February data. Our sales tax, we had an excellent holiday season. When we look at the February's revenue that represents December sales, we see an 8% increase compared to last year. However, because sales tax was lagging a bit earlier in the year, our year-to-date is about level with last year. Then as we look at the $2 lodging tax revenue, we see a 13% decrease for the month of February compared to last year. Year to date, we're about 5% ahead, or a 5% increase over last year, year to date. And again, in the historic sales tax, our December was very good. We see a 5.6% increase. However, year to date, we're running about 4% decrease of 4% year to date. And then the other sides are included. We've already spoke to these. Nothing's changed. Just as keeping those graphs in there in case you want to look at them again for our year-to-date revenue and our year-to-date property tax sides. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. Just for everybody's edification, when we look at these numbers for January, these aren't January's collections, these are actually November's, or 2 months lag, right? So,
Well, we're in February.
right,
And so for sales tax, it's a 2-month lag.
Right.
So we're December. And for the meals and lodging, it's a 1-month lag, so we're January for those. Good point.
yep. Well, and you mentioned the meals tax, or rooms tax being, we both are down, but meals tax, if you look at it, last year's collections were extraordinarily high relative to the
True.
trend, and so we're almost back in line. We'd like to see that trend continue up,
Yes.
but that always can't be the case. So, thank you very much. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. No questions.
Same for me, no questions.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Monthly departmental operating reports. Drew, do we have anybody?
Yeah, so this month we're going to hear from Mr. Reed, talk to us about snow removal process.
Welcome, Mr. Reed.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. As part of our monthly operational report, we're going to review Public Works' response to the multiple snow events we had this year. And to do that, I'm going to invite our street superintendent, Craig Ballard, to come up to present, as he was a primary reason for those operations running smoothly.
Welcome, sir.
City Council. Hello, I'm Craig Baller. I've been with the city for about 11 years, been doing snow removal off and on for 35, so all over the world. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Appreciate this. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to just ask away. All right, here's our agenda. Objective preparations, priorities, event operations, post-events, and then summary. All right. Our objective during any snow event, and every event is a little bit different depending on duration, what type of precipitation we have, but it's really, primary objective is to ensure public safety, with really highlight emergency services to get in and around and respond, as well as public safety. So, and then once we're done with our primary routes, then we get into our secondaries, and then finally our residentials. In preparations, so I focus on the streets, and then Lucas Jenny and his team in landscaping focuses on a lot of the municipal facilities, city-owned properties, and sidewalks. And there's a couple things we can do in preparation for these events, and it's good because most times you get relatively decent forecasts and you can plan appropriately. So this here, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, kind of the standard was we went to brine, which is a saltwater solution, 23% salt. And what tells us whether we should brine or not is if it's going to first rain and then snow or freeze. We don't typically, but if it's going to snow first or ice, then yes, we always brine. So I think there's a video here. And we made this, our little trailer in-house a few years ago. It's effective. It was very inexpensive to create, but it works. And then as far as, so if it does rain first and then changes over to freezing precipitation, we normally just salt and sand the bridges, and then landscaping crew goes out and does the sidewalks for us and the parking lots as well. All right, our priorities. So we've created a priority map recently. It's a little difficult here to see with primaries, secondaries, and residentials. With primary routes, means as you can expect, is any main thoroughfare in or around the city. Fire department, police station, all the way down to the hospital, so we can make sure that route's always cleared and good to go. If we get into an event where we have like blizzard-like conditions, we focus on keeping one lane each direction going. Normally it's the slow lane. So, and then some examples of our secondary roads would be Newport Avenue, Parkway Drive, Penniman, some smaller roads, and obviously the residentials. Event operations. So it's an all hands on deck as far as public works and utilities go. We go into 12-hour shifts, 24-hour ops until the roads and the sidewalks are safe to travel. So we focus on the primaries and secondaries. We rely on the police department and fire department overnight sometimes to report, obviously, and then during the day if needed. And then regular communication with leadership. Try to keep everybody really informed as to status, what's going right, what maybe is not. And then the occasional TV interview on Channel 13 or Wavy 10. They're coming to me to ask for interviews. They're really stretching. All right, so this year was really heavy, comparatively speaking, to the past 10 years or so. We had 4 events, and this here is a roll-up of materials utilized in pounds. And so overall, we spent $25,400 in material costs between our brine, our salt and sand, and then our ice melt. Believe it or not, 3,500 man hours went into these, and then 350 hours of overtime. Pretty significant for us. Post-op, so that's where we're at right now. Post-operational can go on for months, honestly, depending on how much salt and sand that we put down on the roads. As you can see from the sweeper there on the right, we try to reclaim as much usable sand as we can and recycle that and mix it up with new salt and reapply in following years. And that's when we can really focus on the sidewalks, the multi-use paths, to make sure everything's safe for travel. All right, in summary, so I believe that the city responded very well. I think the communication went well. And the more we actually exercise and get to practice this, because we haven't really done this in the past couple of years, I think our crews did a really good job. Maybe too good a job for some folks. At the city offices were only closed for three days over the 4 events. The guys really did a fantastic job. And though there was an uptick in traffic incidents, there were only 2 with reported injuries. So I think that goes to show how good a job the folks did. So that, I have one more.
Well, Mr. Ballard, thank you. Thank you for the good job that you did on the streets, but also the great job that you just did in the presentation. A suit fits you, by the way, better than the orange vest.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You all did do an outstanding job, and when you consider the fact that we don't normally get as much snow that we did, and the way that you handled it would demonstrate that you have lots of experience. And clearly you don't, but you really, what you put forward in effort really made the difference. I get compliments all the time about the snow removal, even from folks in James City County have stopped me and were very complimentary. So I really appreciate you and the team, putting in the extra hours, because it did require that, and making sure that our streets were as safe as possible. So, and thank you for that. And thank you for your ingenuity and looking for ways to save money
Yes, sir.
for the city residents by creating your own device to put down the brine. I think that was really an extra effort well and above. So thank you very much. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ballard. Appreciate you being here today to explain your operations. And as the mayor stated, just kudos to you and all of your staff, all the public works staff. Heard a lot of compliments from my specific neighborhood even, for the way the streets were addressed so quickly. And sidewalks, we heard a lot about, thanks for the sidewalks this year as well. Again, I know, having been on that side of the fence before, I know how difficult it can be for employees. A lot of people like to see snow, but when they realize they're going to have to work all these extra hours, it's not so enticing to see the snow. So appreciate all the hard work that they put forward. And I too heard from residents from other areas about how quickly our streets were cleared and all the work that was done to make it safe. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll echo the thanks. I too heard from many city residents that were so impressed with the operations, particularly in the last event. And just one thing that stood out that I really sat up on with your presentation is that reclaiming the sand. Very cool, because my son actually asked me, because he rides his bike a lot around town, and he was like, what's going to happen to all the sand that's like still on the side of the road? And I am very pleased that I can now report back to him, he's a tough customer, about what happens. And I just wanted to echo that as like another just really, I'm grateful for the thought and the planning that goes into seeing everything through, and appreciate very much your work and effort and those of your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I want to express my appreciation too, although I always like to get out in the snow before your all's crews get clearing so that I can appreciate how pretty it is in this community of ours. And sometimes you make it tough to get out there before you all are clearing the roads. And since I live on the dead end of one of those tertiary roads, I can attest to the fact that you all took care of all of us very quickly and well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramsey.
Yes, well, thank you to you and your team for all your efforts, especially as we saw a great influx of snow this past season. So thank you, and especially with the overtime hours. I know there's a lot that goes into. It's always beautiful to look at, but as was mentioned earlier, we don't always recognize the after effects of the weather, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Also, I need to thank you, City Council, for the support and funding. Mr. Trivett, for everything that you do to provide. Mr. Reed, thanks. You're a good boss. Williamsburg Police Department, Williamsburg Fire Department, Public Works, Fleet Management, Landscape. Oh, Micah for those cool videos. Those were neat. Thank you very much.
Definitely a
Thank
team
you.
effort. Thank you. Okay, takes us now to city manager's report. Anything from you?
None today.
Okay, city attorney?
Nothing today.
Leads us now into open forum, and I do have a number of speakers cards. First one I have is Ms. Lori Wheel.
Laurie Wheel, 412 Harriet Tubman Drive. Thank you, Mayor Pons and council, for allowing me to speak. I'm not a fan of the idea of having a large children's park right in the location they're talking about. The proximity to CW, and not to mention taking away a pasture and the oxen, seems unusual. When I think about the food and drink establishments for families on this side of Dog Street, well, there are two, Retros and Aromas, but that's about it. The others, Blue Talon, Amber Ox, those are not just family places to take the kids after they've been splashing and getting wet and dragging their towels. Parking has got to be an issue, as always. I feel, I notice the garage in town is very often quite full. It's doing quite well, which is wonderful, but so the issue of parking, I don't understand what the thinking is on that. I'm pretty sure if it's a really nice park and a good one like it would be, even local families are going to want to be bringing their children and families in. So it won't be just people staying in hotels and such and walking there. There'll be more traffic. Safety issues, children excited with, running in and out of the pool and not, I'm thinking of the street, of course. A lot of activity on that part of the street around a very exciting place. Even the buses, the school buses that come in from out of town park on that little leg of Prince George Street there. It's just so centralized. And speaking of where they'll stay, there are no hotels within walking distance on this side of Dog Street. I think I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So people will be driving in even if they're staying in Colonial Williamsburg. Just traffic, always traffic. Feel like we have a lot of debt with the sports center, the fire station, police station. I see recession in the front page of my newspaper often. And then I was walking home and I noticed some new signage near the library and at the corner of Armistead and Scotland Street. And one of the arrows points toward Matthew Whaley, which is directly at Colonial Williamsburg, and says City Center or City Square. It was like, there's a library here, and then there are 2 blocks of houses. What's going on? There seems to be more than meets the eye to me. So, more parking, more food establishments, a lot more traffic. Sustainable? Is it vibrant? And mostly, is it walkable? I just see people parking maybe in the parking garage and the kids coming across the street with their families or without their families. It just doesn't make sense to me. So thank you for sharing my thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker's card I have is David Cranbuell. Just state your name and address for the record, and
Okay.
keep your comments to about 5
Always need
minutes.
to be reminded. Thank you, Doug. David Cranbuell, 201 Harrison. First of all, I want to thank all 5 of you for taking the time to hear what I'm concerned about, and I guess it's hopeless as to what I propose, but I hope not, because I've written some other things that need to be done. But I want to thank you for that, and I apologize for being so worked up about how I feel and hope, and I know you do too, that we have an optimum democratic procedure here in this town, because we're a unique city. We have a special responsibility. But in summary of where we are, my simple point is there are enormous benefits to having 3 proposals as having an initial step of the committee, going to each proposal team and writing to them what they saw as weaknesses, and then having them come back and make 3 public presentations so that the citizens are informed and involved. And I won't go through the details where we agree there's things that could have been done better. That's unfortunate, but there's nothing to do about it. What really is, in my mind, tragic is that in the simple act of the recommendation committee eliminating 2 proposals and thereby choosing a proposal, they've gone beyond their role of recommending and reporting to city council that actually makes the decisions. That's my personal opinion. And we've eliminated the possibility of the residents to actually see and gain from all the money and time that 3 top-rate teams from across the country have devoted to providing information to the city. We've reduced the information to 1/3. And most depressing, because I've read everything that's come to me within the last 10 minutes, and I find it sad. And I don't fault anybody, because I make plenty of faults myself. But sometimes, and this is a huge problem for the city in my mind, it's going too fast. It's not taking time to listen to residents, and there's a huge buildup of frustration because of that. And in my mind, de facto, and I love this, that the library stated as its goal is to provide information to the residents, so we have an informed public who can provide that information to city council, who then makes the decisions. But in eliminating 2 of the 3 proposals, we've, so to speak, censored 2/3 of the information that the citizens wanted. And that's sad. And I used a strong word, and I apologize if I used it, but we've prevented, in the fullest way possible, to put it in a positive spin, the ability of the library itself, in particular this process, to achieve what the library has stated as their goal, to create an informed public so that we have the optimum democratic system. So I'm very sad for what's happened, and I've done my best. But I thank everybody, because it's all well-intentioned, but I think it's a rather tragic thing that's happened, and I've proposed some other things privately that I'd like to see cleared up, but again, I thank you. Carry on. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Crambiel.
It's not the end of the world. We just.
Next speaker's card I have is Chuck Keating.
Hello, my name is Chuck Keating. I live at 321 North Henry Street. I'm not going to rehash some of the things that have been said and that I've already spoken to the council about in your prior session. I did a little bit of homework from our last discussion of the splash park, so to speak. I did, Colonial Williamsburg certainly is special, as everyone here would agree. But I started looking at other historical areas and districts throughout the United States. I came up with 10, and I'll have a handout that I'll pass out before I leave. But there were 10 historic districts across the United States that had similarities to Colonial Williamsburg. I could not find one that had any kind of similar type of children's park that Colonial Williamsburg is being proposed. The other thing that I also saw, there was one, Old Sturbridge Village in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, has a children's clubhouse. It's a couple hundred square feet. It's often a very secluded area in relationship to the historical district. Not one of these areas has anything on a main venue coming in a thoroughfare into their colonial area that would detract from their mission of trying to provide that immersion in a historical area consistent with the time period that's being addressed. It's at the conceptual stage now. There hasn't been a lot of information, and myself and our neighbors have tried to scour for that. There hasn't been a lot. We saw a price tag of $6.5 million. I haven't seen a detailed budget of where that number came from, although it's recommended to go look at for financing for that. The bottom line conclusion that I'd like to throw out, at least from Chuck's perspective, is that that area, that pasture is special. Coming into the colonial area, that's one of the first things that the visitors see. Once they come in from the interstate, coming into the colonial area, it's one of the first things they see. They have countless times seen small children. That's some of them the first time they've ever seen an ox in live. So it is very special. It supports the rare breed program for Colonial Williamsburg. So I think it's tragic to get as far as we've gotten, even though we're at the conceptual stage, to try to tap that as a place. I'm not opposed to places for children to play and for families to have recreation. I think that the recreation encroaching on the educational mission that's part of Colonial Williamsburg, I think is incongruent. So I would ask that if we think about that children's park, one is that we be very transparent on the cost and the conceptual plan. The second thing is that we find a suitable location that's consistent with protecting the Colonial Williamsburg area, its mission, and very important, the neighborhood that would be adjacent to that. So with that, I'll go ahead. I've included the details of the 10 different locations that I've looked at. So the details are summarized in here as well as conclusions.
You can just hand those to the.
Yeah, I'll take them up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Next speaker's card I have is David Hardis. Good afternoon, sir. Just state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
Great.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Artis, and I live at 333 Scotland Street. My wife and I have been here almost 5 years, and I wanted to express my concern and reservations regarding the proposed children's park and splash pad that's being planned. And it is something that we've just found out about over the last couple of weeks. And I know other people are talking about concern on finances, what's included, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I do want to talk about the uniqueness of the pasture and green space and what I hope it means for both Colonial Williamsburg and for the city. And I apologize if I'm going to try and read more of my notes because I want to make sure I'm respectful of the time limit.
Thank you, sir.
But the easiest way to express my concerns is by telling you a short story. For those of you who may not know me, I'm the one that has the 2 yellow labs that we're walking all over town, through the college, downtown and CW, multiple times a day. And the best story I can tell you, probably about 6 months after we moved here, I was walking the dogs at night, probably around 9 o'clock, and coming back from the Merchant Square area down Henry Street to home, and started to pass the pasture, and saw the ox. They were gathered by the Mary Brooks house at the corner of Scotland and Henry Street, and didn't know what was going on. I didn't think anything of it. And as we came closer, I saw that the lead ox had tilted over the split rail fence, and he was 90% over the fence. And some of his buddies were right behind him. They were hungry, looking for food on the other side of the fence, and I didn't know what to do. So I figured, well, Bill Dell's been, he's lived in the house there. I'll call Bill and see if he knows who to call in CW. Well, it turns out, Bill said, yes, I know who to call, and it turns out he didn't have the right number. So then he did the next best thing. He called 911. And if you can imagine yourself as the emergency operator. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, I'd like to report that the oxen in the Timpson field are getting ready to escape. Can you contact Colonial Williamsburg to corral them up and save the city from ruin? And the moral, only in Williamsburg, only in Colonial Williamsburg would something like that happen. That's what makes this place special and what's important about that field right in downtown. Anytime there are animals in the field, I'm sure all of you recognize, people want to come and pet them, whether it's the horses, whether it's the ox, which ironically they've moved as of yesterday, so the field's empty. But that's, when people come down North Henry Street, one of the largest avenues into town, that's one of the first things they see, and they realize all of a sudden, I'm not in Kansas anymore. This is a unique place. This is a unique field. People to come to Williamsburg for its uniqueness, quaintness, and history, that's what the field represents. From that pasture, among other things, you can have sight lines of the Timpson House, one of the oldest houses in Williamsburg. During the winter now, from certain areas on Henry Street, you can actually see through the trees the outline of the palace. In the evenings during the summer, when the ice cream shops on Prince George are packed with tourists and locals alike, they come down Prince George and they look at the animals, they seek the animals, they have a wonderful time. In its current use, not only does it provide an irreplaceable buffer for CW, but it's also used by people of all ages, from children to adults, young adults, teenagers, college students, your grandparents. Why would we consider limiting its use by reconfiguring it to a children's park with appeal to only a smaller subset of the overall population? Everything Williamsburg does is first class, and I have no doubt that were they to do something, it would be a wonderful addition, but I do have issues with the appropriateness of the use for this land. And I hope that Colonial Williamsburg, the foundation, recognizes its value and unique positioning and marketing value for them as well. People don't come to Williamsburg to see and do things they can do in literally thousands of places across the country. This isn't about not in my backyard. I'm all for children's parks and pocket parks. Perhaps a children's park would be better suited as you redevelop the library location where there already is a great attraction for families to go there. As well as for what the city hopes with the developing of Restaurant Row. But this spot on Henry Street essentially is a park already, and its value is there's no monetary amount that you could place to its value. A children's park and splash pad could be anywhere in the country, greatly used and appreciated, but it's not unique, not in the least. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. The next card I have is for Nancy Bolash. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. Nancy Bolash, 327 Burns Lane. I'm going to be somewhat repeating what you've heard before, and I think the reason that you all are hearing on this topic today is it's sometimes hard for those of us who live here to know when is the right point in the process to start giving you some input. We don't always know at what point of the process you are at. And so I'm going to go ahead and speak on this topic as well. A financially solid, publicly inputted park for children could be a great idea. Picture water shooting into the air, running, excited, screaming, and high-pitched laughter of children really enjoying themselves. But that picture is a very, very poor fit, as you've heard others say more eloquently than I, for the heart of the historic area. Colonial Williamsburg does make our town unique, a special place for residents and visitors alike. CW tries hard to immerse folks in an 18th century world, and we would be very short-sighted to detract in any way from this experience. The Oxon property is quiet and bucolic. It's a buffer separating the CW experience from the modern world. Putting a water children's park in this location would destroy both the visual and the audio cushion. We don't need to do this. Please preserve what is precious about the historic heart of our town and don't encroach on it. At the very least, please consider another location where we can entertain our youngest residents and visitors in a true 21st century fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker's card is for Natalie Miller-Moore. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, Natalie Miller-Moore. First of all, I would like to say the wayfinding signs look great. They're going up all over town, and I'm delighted to see them. But I'm here because there's a few interesting little threads coming together. I have been trying to come and say something positive about all the work of city employees and officials for months, but it is challenging as a working parent who travels. But every time I return back to Williamsburg, I'm so grateful for the people who put a lot of effort into making this city what it is. I'm also in graduate school and recently got to share with my class a joke about Virginia. And since they are from all over the country, I'm not sure they got it, but maybe you will. How many Virginians does it take to change a light bulb? One to change the light bulb, one to talk about how great the old light bulb was, one to start a historic society for the light bulb, and the other two to raise money for a future light bulb museum. The adaptations are mine, but I often feel like people in Williamsburg don't have a perspective on how well we have managed to change and how well planned many of the things we are doing are. Over the decades that I've lived here, I've seen some really visionary blue sky thinking that has gotten us some great new projects and innovations, and nearly everything that goes through was resisted in the beginning. We have a tendency for inertia, and I think that's because of our propensity to see change as threatening, but it also comes from a reverence for history. As a downtown resident, I think living downtown comes with natural consequences. Sometimes I wake up and there are hundreds of people running a 5K outside my house, accompanied by the Fife and Drum Corps. My kids have gotten rerouted on their walk to school because of a TV show filming in the historic area. My streets get blocked off for homecoming parades, and in 7 years, we have never successfully gotten a pizza delivered without additional instructions to the driver. These are things I find amusing because in the scheme of things, it is well worth the trade of living in an interesting community that combines history and nature and entertainment and shopping and recreation. My sons are growing up here, going to school and working here, and I love the blend of everything within walking distance, including my son's job in Merchant Square, being able to walk to Matthew Whaley when my children were in school there, walking to the library to get coffee and haircuts. And we also love the historic part. Watching the lambs play in the spring is one of the great definitions of joy for me. I understand the delicate balance between the modern and the historic, and in order to get something great in the future, we need to see the benefits of everything we do and how that outweighs the cost of change. If it doesn't have benefits, let's not do that, but I don't think that's what's happening here. Every city event I've attended offers the opportunity for public participation and a staff willing to learn, to listen and learn from what residents would like. So I'm here to offer support to the blue sky visionary thinking of people who work for the city, people who have worked for the city in the past but never saw their vision pay off until later, and everyone who serves the city. One of the most important things here, I think, is that everything is carefully considered and we blend the modern and the historic the best that we can. But I also want to say that it's been hard for me to get to these meetings because I have a lot of things going on. So I'm here to speak not for the trees, but for the kids and the working parents who might really benefit from the park as a resident of the city. And I think it's important to remember that there's a lot of different constituencies here who might benefit. And I would love to see more family-friendly places downtown that enhance what we already have. And I trust your good judgment in doing that. But I also just want to express deep gratitude for all of the things that you have to push uphill and then they get built and they're amazing, like the Stryker Center that we're standing in today. So thank you very much for all of your hard work, and I just wanted to add my voice to this conversation.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker's card I have is Megan Stinman. Megan Stinman. Yep. Welcome.
Hi.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Megan Steinman. I am a resident at 515 Newport Avenue here in Williamsburg. I am speaking today to offer my support to the Council for developing the playground for children on North Henry Street. I say this both as a mother of 2 young children and as a scholar who holds a PhD in sociology with expertise on community development and inclusion. My support rests on 2 main principles. First, I want to speak as a scholar to commend the Council for proposing to develop this public playground that will have numerous benefits for everyone who works, lives in, and visits Williamsburg. Research suggests that public parks and playgrounds enhance property values, attract and retain high-quality businesses, and improve community health and well-being. Research also suggests that public playgrounds serve as a vital resource for building social infrastructure, the kinds of places where people of different backgrounds can forge ties with each other that help to combat social isolation, foster a vibrant community, and ultimately build a better democracy. I can think of no better location than to have a public playground than in the heart of Williamsburg. It's a location that is beneficial for everyone, and especially for children and their families. Second, I want to speak as a mother and a citizen to commend the Council for having a vision of Williamsburg that is inclusive of all of us who live here. Williamsburg is not just a place of history to view colonial architecture. It's not just a place of nature to admire oxen and sheep in a pasture. This is also a place where people go to work and go to church. It's a place where neighbors and friends meet at the farmer's market or at the regional library. It's a place where kids go to school, ride bikes, and play outside. To think of Williamsburg only narrowly as a historic site meant for consumption undermines the multitude of ways that people see and use our beloved city. Supporting a playground for families and children supports a vision of our community that makes it a place for all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next speaker's card I have is David Tritchler. Welcome.
David Tritchler, 324 Indian Springs. I'm coming here today because I'd like to help enlist the City Council to solve a dinner time debate that's often a cause of great angst for my daughters. You see, often I have one daughter who loves to read, loves to go to the Williamsburg Library. I have a 3-year-old who's obsessed with playgrounds. And when I can't choose in the nighttime, oftentimes it devolves into rampant crying, tantrums. What we love to do is be able to combine our outings, to be able to live in a place and have opportunities to embrace where we live. So I'm here to offer my support for these ideas of a children's playground. The idea that we can have a place where we as residents can take our families and invest in them. It, to me, is one of the most exciting ideas that I've heard in the 15 years I've lived here. I can't tell you how excited this makes my kids think. They've been talking about the playground ever since they knew it was a possibility for weeks. Because they go to school down here. We drive our bikes to the farmer's market. We go to the library. We go to Baskin Robbins. I can tell you as a parent here, there's been some hypotheses operated like, what do kids want? What do parents want? Well, from my experience, the idea of being able to go to the library, then walk down the street to a playground, and then be able to go walk further, see the oxen, because this park's not going to take up the whole space. It's 1/3 of the space. The oxen will still be there. If we want children, if we want parents to activate and be part of this area, this will draw them in. They'll actually be more participatory in our history. We'll see the oxen, then we'll go spend money downtown and get a treat. For me, this is one of the best ideas I've heard. It embraces vibrancy, embraces our history, and embraces our future. And also having to run a business here. So I work in a research institute, and we're about to move downtown here in a year. We're going to bring 60 people here with degrees in computer science, data science, research analytics. We're going to work down there, having green space, being able to bring people who want to bring their families to Williamsburg. When they move in, when they drive in, being able to see a beautifully done playground that embraces our history, that they can see themselves here in this city, that they can want to move here. That to me is incredible help trying to run a business here. We often talk about wanting to make Williamsburg a place for all. We know our demographics is heavily skewed to the students and to those who are in the 50, 60 degree, up. We're that classic hourglass shape. If we want to invest and build out the middle, we need your help. I need your help to recruit people here, to help anchor families here, to bring families who live here downtown. I know the city has done a lot to invest for those who retire here, want to live their lives out here. We have many great friends in our congregation, our church community, and others. We're so grateful that they have a spot in the City Invest. We know the city invests a lot in the college students. We're grateful to have college students be part of this robust place. What our hearts are aching for is investments in our families. We really need your help to invest in our families. I know we're not the majority. I know there may not be a lot of us. I've heard a lot of comments here that overlook us today, which is really heartbreaking to hear. And so my plea for you today is, as we think about the park and other ideas, where do we see us? Where do we see us with kids? This means a lot to our family. I've got 3 young girls. Try to make a place here for them. We're actively trying to stay here, to find spots where we can be part of the community, be able to spend in the community, invest in downtown businesses, and also have a spot where our children can play, to laugh. And here are some of these ideas of muffle this, and we need a buffer for children's laughter. It's really heartbreaking to hear that concept, right? I know there's a place where we can both see nature, and we can have children, and we can have this place. So when I think about preservation, I think about preservation for the past. I also think about preservation for the future. What we invest in really signifies where we want to be in 5, 10, 15 years. I would just go back to Proverbs when it says, your children's children are the crown for the age. And as I age, I want my children to remember their time living and grow up in Williamsburg as a place where they can play, where they can have these experiences, where they can embrace all, not isolated, hidden, but a place where they can come to see the history, see the animals, get the ice cream, go to the library, be part of an integrated whole. We don't want to be isolated. We want to be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker's card I have is Mary Cottrell. Welcome.
Thank you. Mary Control, 516 Burbank Street, Highland Park Community, and I will be totally transparent, retired from Colonial Williamsburg and a William & Mary alum, so I'm here. I'd like to thank some city employees for addressing issues that I brought to their attention. Tony Bishop, Assistant to the Director of Public Works and Utilities. I sent her a picture of construction trash that had for several months been left at the Henry Street exit of my neighborhood on March 2nd. She replied the next day, and 4 days later, the trash had finally been removed. That same day, March 2nd, I also sent a picture of an issue that had existed for years with the sidewalk at the low point in the Henry Street entrance to my neighborhood. I sent it to Mayor Doug Pons since I had discussed this issue with him in the past. He immediately sent this issue to the city manager, and repairs are being completed this week. Thank you so much. Now, snow prep. The sidewalk coming out of Highland Park on the North Henry Street exit is a rather steep hill and is in the shade, and that stayed covered in snow and ice for many days. Please add this location to sidewalks you check during the next storm. Prompt attention to items when they are brought to your attention is one of the best things about living in this city. But if I can, I would also like a moment to express my opposition to the potential borrowing of $6 million to build a splash park on land the city does not own. We already have enough debt, and we need to save access to funds for emergency expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next speaker's card I have is Randy Casey Rutland. Welcome, sir. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Randy Casey Rutland, 333 Mill Neck, Williamsburg. Mayor, council members, I'd like to put in a positive word for your consideration of the interim agreement to move forward with the consideration of the new library building. I also speak on behalf of the Friends of the Williamsburg Regional Library Foundation. The Friends have been providing the kind of support that helps make the library great for 60 years. The Friends are really enthusiastically supportive of your consideration of this interim step. And I just want to add my own words. I'm looking forward to getting something out on the table where people can look at it and comment about it, can have suggestions about parking and parks and facade and placement and design and entrance and all the things that make a municipal building one of ours, something that we can enjoy and love for decades, as we have this old building that is now not really able to serve our community as well as it once did. I mean, it's got leaking roofs and sewage problems and HVAC problems, technology and housing, the different children's programs and youth programs and a small theater. All of these things make it challenging to have a really exciting, great library program here. A new building is just really an exciting opportunity for us here in the city. And I want to add my word of support for the consideration. This is not a final choice. It's a one step to kind of get us talking about it in the public so we can get a lot of public feedback and see where we're going. So thank you for doing that, considering that. Thank you also for your gifts to the Friends. I appreciate that. Thank you to everyone here who's made a gift to the Friends. It helps make our library great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that concludes all the speakers' cards, but the public forum is still open if anybody would like to come forward to speak. Welcome, sir. If you just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Wilson at 22 The Palisades. I sent you earlier my opposition to the Peacock Hill Children's Park, primarily on the basis, for one, I think it's kind of a rushed judgment. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Is it a children's park? What's the elements of the splash park which kind of take it up to a different level? And I think, my experience in talking to residents in the area is there's not a lot of information that they've been able to get exactly what the nature of the park is. Is it a children's park that, can benefit some of the younger families? Is it a splash park, and what does that mean? Is it a water park? Does it have insurance liability and that type of thing? So I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. The question of money, I saw the number that we want to borrow from a bank $6.5 million. I don't know how in the world you spend $6.5 million on this particular property. The assessed value is less than $1 million, $500,000 if it's just the parcel that fronts on North Henry Street. So I don't know what the deal is with Colonial Williamsburg. That hasn't been stated. There's been no information out there in terms of what the financial structure is, what the cost is, and how we get to $6.5 million. So I think we need to kind of slow the thing down a little bit, get more information for the community to understand what it is and what the nature of the cost and the financing is before we commit to this particular project. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Fairbanks, welcome. State your name and address for the record, please.
Sabrina Fairbanks, property owner 105 Wythe Avenue. Good afternoon, council. My comments today aren't really about a specific project, but more about how the citizens are finding out about your projects. And as Mrs. Bolash talked about, you know, at what point in the process do we find out about it? In the 2022 Future Festival surveys, it was alarming to me that I believe it was the second highest ranking of how citizens are finding out about what's going on in the city is through word of mouth. To this point, I talked to a store manager at Walgreens on Tuesday, and they have not heard of the traffic circle or the Lafayette Street widening. And I think we could all agree that this is, you know, troubling, whether those projects are good ideas and will move forward or not. I don't want to just identify problems all the time. A couple of ideas that I have and others have had about getting the word out and getting more community involvement might be to expand your procedures of how you notify the public. For instance, I live in Walnut Hills, and I didn't know that the Peacock Hill Children's Park was an immediate concern or how they found out about it. I didn't hear anything about it happening right now. I thought the issue at hand was the VDOT projects. But as I understand it, the city's required to only to notify the adjacent property owners. And so, for instance, I own property at 105 Wythe Avenue, which is one house away from Lafayette. But I won't get notice about the Lafayette Street widening because I'm not adjacent. And I'm wondering if we could expand this idea of notification to adjacent streets, adjacent neighbors and homeowners who live in adjacent neighborhoods, because really that's who's getting impacted. Another idea is, it would be a lot, I know, to ask, but to maybe go to the legislature and by yourselves or with other communities and say, you've got to look at this procedure of printing notice, posting notice in printed newspapers. I mean, we're way beyond that, and so many people, at least that I know, do not subscribe to a printed newspaper. And if that's not an option, maybe it's just easier if the city officials would post this information for all of us in some online newspapers, like WI Daily, WHRO, the Williamsburg Independent. And I think if you put enough of it out there in different places, maybe more of us, will hear about it in time. Because that's a big complaint, is that we don't find out about projects in time to give you input. We kind of find out and everybody's scrambling at the last minute. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Welcome, sir. State your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
My name's Jerry Petro. I own 3 properties on Lafayette Street. And to echo Mrs. Fairbanks' comments, I have not received any notice from the city concerning the Lafayette Street widening project. Can you explain that to me, please?
this is an opportunity for you to make comments to council, sir. We're not going to.
Okay. Well, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to come forward? Seeing none, I'll close the the open forum, and we'll move on to unfinished business, which there is none. Takes us to new business, and first is consideration and action regarding proposed resolution 25-02, affirming funding commitment and authorization agreement for VDOT Smart Scale projects. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of City Council. We came to council last month to present information on 4 smart scale projects the city was awarded. These included Lafayette Street signal and pedestrian improvements, Richmond Road signal coordination and pedestrian improvements, Lafayette Street widening, and the Monticello Avenue, Richmond Road, Lafayette Street roundabout. Today, we recommend council approve Resolution 25-02, affirming the funding commitment and authorizing VDOT agreements for these smart scale projects. To review the projects included in the resolution, we'll first look at the Lafayette Street signal and pedestrian improvements. What this project would entail is improving the signal timing and coordination at the 3 intersections of Lafayette Street and North Armistead, Lafayette Street and North Boundary, and Lafayette Street and North Henry. If approved, we would start this project in July of this year and hope to complete in March of 2027. The second project in this resolution is the Richmond Road signal coordination and pedestrian improvements. What this would involve is improving the timing and coordination of all signals on Richmond Road from Governor Berkeley down to Monticello Avenue, Lafayette Street. It would also include Ironbound Road and Long Hill, Ironbound and Trayburn, Monticello Avenue and College Row, and Monticello and Trayburn Drive to essentially have those signals timed better to get traffic through the city more efficiently. Again, we would hope to start this project this summer and complete it in summer of 2027. The next project as part of this resolution is the Lafayette Street widening. We would look to widen the travel lanes between Bacon Avenue and Wythe Avenue, which is that tight section of Lafayette. We would also widen the sidewalk from Bacon Avenue to Wythe. We would add a shared use path from Bacon Avenue to Virginia, all this while maintaining on Alden Street parking, and move all utilities that are above ground right now to below grade. Again, we would hope to start this project in July of 25 and hope to complete in July of 2029. Lastly, the Monticello Avenue, Richmond Road, Lafayette Street roundabout. This project would remove the traffic signal that is there currently and convert it to a convert the signalized intersection to a multi-lane roundabout. We would replace all the sidewalks, and what this would do is increase efficiency, safety, and aesthetics of that intersection. Due to the time that's elapsed since we were awarded the funds for these projects, their cost has increased significantly, and so we will be requesting additional funds from VDOT to avoid needing to include any additional city funds. Same time frame with some of the other projects. We would hope to start this summer, but this is a larger project, so it would take roughly 5 years, completed in March of 2030. But with that, we recommend the City Council approve Resolution 25-02, affirming the commitment to fund the locality share and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to carrying out the 4 smart scale projects. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. So we got 4 different projects within this, the question that we have. As I recall from our last conversation, particularly with concerns about the roundabout, it's my understanding today that what we would be approving would allow for next steps to occur in terms of designing the roundabout so that a future decision could be made as to whether or not we're going to proceed with that roundabout. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. As we stand with smart scale money, there's been certain monies that have been allotted to these 4 projects from VDOT. Now, the cost of these, projected costs for these projects have exceeded what they've allocated, I think for each of the 4, right?
Yes, sir.
In varying degrees. I mean, obviously, signal coordination isn't very expensive relative to the other projects, and so that additional cost that we may incur would be somewhat marginal, again, relative to what we're talking about in all of these projects.
Correct. With the signal optimization projects, there's generally a 20% contingency built in, and we feel like the contingency will cover the overage on those particular projects. But the Lafayette Street widening and the roundabout will be requesting additional funds for.
Okay. Okay, so how should we be considering all 4 of these? Because it strikes me that 3 of the projects, minus the roundabout, are projects that are easily achievable. Now, the Lafayette widening is a little bit different, but because it may require additional funds. Maybe back up a little bit. What I would like to see about the roundup is the further future designs of it, and then allow council to have that conversation in the future as to whether or not we implement the smart scale money and whether we put in additional money if required, and maybe there's additional money from VDOT that would cover that additional cost. Can we approve this resolution to support all 4 of these, still get signal coordination done, the Monticello and Richmond Road, without having a further discussion, leaving the other 2 more expensive ones to come back for further discussion and ultimate approval? I don't know if I'm making sense.
I think so. The only issue is if the resolution is passed and we move forward with design, the design obviously costs a certain amount of money. If at that point the city, if we chose not to move forward, VDOT may request those funds back.
Yeah.
But let me chime in a little bit. There are 4 projects. Even though all 4 projects are on this resolution, there are 4 individual projects as far as VDOT is concerned.
Right.
So the council can absolutely choose to do 1, 2, 3, or all 4 independent of each other.
Okay.
If that's your question.
Right. Well, so in that, there's a nuance, I believe. So if we, and I'm okay with approving all 4, even the roundabout, because it's my understanding that design work has to be done, and there's an opportunity for us to make a decision on that in the future.
Right.
And that means there'll be opportunity for public input, there'll be an understanding of what the cost may or may not be additional to the city. So that one sets that aside. But I don't want the notion of holding that out for the future to impede the signalization optimization that's happening. I think those we should, get approved.
I think all 4 of these projects have to be designed. Isn't that right, Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir.
And it's very likely that even the signal optimization will have to come back to city council because of the value of the contract after we receive the money from VDOT.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that answers my question. So for all of these 4 different parts of this proposal, there'll be future discussions for council.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
So, I had similar questions that.
Hopefully you can ask it better than I did.
All 4 projects are not tied together. And when you say the project is starting, that means the design phase is starting, which is the initial step of the project. Obviously, I've had a lot of questions about specifically the roundabout, how it's going to impact the properties. How much property is there any property acquisition that needs to occur? I'm concerned about that light at Mount Vernon being too close to the roundabout. I know all of those things come after the design. So I had similar question about moving forward. However, one thing may have changed when you said VDOT may ask for us to return the money if we move forward with the design. I don't know, that brings into question,
So I think, if I can, I think there are still a lot of questions with these projects, right? But paramount, to me at least, and I think also the city council, probably to Mr. Reed, is given the amount of time that's passed since these projects were first approved and what we now know or what we expect in terms of the actual project cost, what is VDOT going to require of the city as we move forward? And the only way really to answer that is to move ahead with this process. So I think the very next thing that will happen is we will find out with certainty how much money VDOT is going to provide for each project, which would be yet another opportunity for the city council to decide whether you're going to proceed or not with each one individually.
so that'll be before there's any commitment that we have to repay VDOT some funding.
Well, so, yes, so let me walk it forward even further. So let's say that we find out from VDOT that they are going to cover 100% of the cost of each one of these projects as we've outlined them, right? Because I think the Lafayette widening, we do have some money involved in that project. It's local funding. But let's say that we move ahead, right? So we're going to get the money from VDOT, and then we have to solicit a contractor to do the design. That design on a project of this magnitude is likely to be so much that I can't just approve it. That also is going to have to come back to city council for approval. So when that contract comes back, we would have the question answered from VDOT about what are they going to expect if we go through the design process to truly determine, A, what the project's going to look like, but also what its actual cost is going to be, and then decide not to proceed. I think that's what would happen. So before you approve spending the VDOT money, we would have that answer.
Okay, and that's what I want to hear, is that we've still got multiple opportunities to deny these projects, because, again, since 2017, the cost of these projects has changed significantly. And, I mean, I agree with the mayor that the signalized intersections can move, you move forward, but these other projects, not knowing what the design looks like and the cost before I would go out to say we support these and not know what VDOT's going to contribute to these projects.
Ms. Grinchier?
Thank you. So not to just keep rehashing perhaps the same thing and said different ways, to make sure that I understand, one thing about moving forward is that right now, this is what we're saying is with these 4 projects and one vote here, that basically we're still listening, like we're still at the table, we're still interested. But then in the future, because they're different projects, because they're not tied together, because they have different timetables based on what they are, that moving forward, we would be making individual determinations about each one. So because the signalization is easy, smaller project, quicker, easier to figure out in advance, like we may see that sooner and come back versus something that is much more, I would imagine, complicated in design, such as the roundabout. So it's not necessarily them always moving in lockstep based on what the projects are. So if I have a question here, which I think I do, is that today is we're looking at them together, but moving forward, we would be making individualized determinations at post-design for each of these projects and approving or saying, like, no, actually, with the information we have learned, we are now backing away from the table.
I think that's accurate, except I would add probably pre-design as well.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Ms. Ramsey?
Thank you. I'm not going to muddy the water any with that. I think we're all clear on that. I do want to point out, though, that when we talk about these projects beginning, that they do have different end times. And depending upon when they actually, I think when we say starts this summer, that people think that they'll see shovels in the ground. And looking at the 2 signalization projects, they would be completed in like a 2-year time period, whereas the widening and the roundabout could be, as you said, 4 to 5 years. And since these started 8 years ago, that time period could even extend even longer. So I think the reason that perhaps not as much information is out there about the particulars on these projects, because we don't know what those particulars are until we get into sort of the second phase, which would be the design phase.
That's correct.
So, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you, Mr. Reed and Mr. Trivett, for clarifying more information about our decision here today and the impacts that implicates. I think it is worth to note that this decision today is just approving the design process to move forward, and that this is not a final decision in the process as well. And I think it will be very helpful to see after we get the designs back, to see their implications and ramifications as well on our community. So thank you for clarifying.
But as Mr. Trivett said, I think it's pre-design.
Yeah, really all this resolution says is that VDOT, if you're giving out money, we'd still take it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Reed. Well, so, I think it's entirely appropriate for us to look to see what opportunities are available to make improvements to our roadways and sidewalks and underground powering. So I certainly would support this.
Yeah, and I think as we have learned over the years, VDOT takes a while, and we do benefit when we receive the funding. So with that, I'll make move that City Council approve Resolution 25-02, affirming the commitment to fund the locality share and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents relative to carrying out the 4 smart scale projects.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Thank you. Item B on the agenda is discussion and authorization to negotiate an interim agreement with Horrigan Construction for the construction of the Williamsburg Regional Library. Shelton.
So in May of 2024, the city issued an RFP for a conceptual phase PPEA to design and construct a new downtown library. There were 3 responses to that RFP. City Council reviewed those responses and directed the city manager to form a working group with stakeholders from the library and the city to evaluate those proposals and to come back to City Council with a recommendation. They have done so, and they have recommended that City Council select Horrigan Construction Corporation as the contractor to proceed to negotiate an interim agreement. We're working on a draft of that interim agreement. The step for City Council today is simply to select the contractor to move forward with.
Yes, and Mayor, also, the evaluation committee asked that Jim Yatsik, a representative from MVP, which is the city's construction management firm, be here to represent the evaluation committee, and so we're happy to have Jim come up and talk about the process if you'd like.
Good, I think that'd be helpful. Thank you, Jim. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trivett. I'm Mayor Pons, members of City Council. As Mr. Trivett mentioned, Jim Yatsik worked with a local project management, construction management firm, so that worked with the city to help through the evaluation process of the proposals that were received. So as Ms. Shelton mentioned, the city received 3 conceptual phase proposals. The evaluation committee was convened. We had multiple meetings with the committee to review the proposals, discuss the merits of those proposals. We focused in on the qualifications, project characteristics, and project costs financing of those proposals. It was found that one of the proposals really separated itself from the other 2 proposals, so it was the ultimate recommendation from the evaluation committee to move forward or recommend to City Council to move forward with the one proposal, the one that the city would begin entering into those negotiations for an interim agreement on. And I did want to mention, because I know that the public engagement is very, very important for a community project like a library. So one of the very first steps that would be involved into this interim agreement is have community engagement sessions with that firm, go out, talk to the community, present some of the different options that have come up, and then let some of that inform the design, that early design process that's undertaken. That's
Jim.
Any questions for Jim?
I don't know if this is a good time to just ask a little bit about the evaluation committee, and thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody on the evaluation committee, but just a little bit about maybe what were some of the things that you were looking at, and maybe Barb and Pat, I know too, were on the
I was
committee,
going to
so,
suggest
yeah.
that since they were on the committee, maybe you guys can chime in on how that process unfolded and what got us here today.
Yeah, as Jim indicated, the committee took a look at all of the proposals, and obviously you can imagine they're lengthy proposals, but also, as he indicated, one stood out, had a significant advantage over the other proposals, and that's why the committee decided to move forward with what's before us today, the recommendation to select Horgan. Thank all the committee members. They did a tremendous amount of work in bringing this to where it is today, and it just didn't happen overnight. We started meeting in October and had meetings consistent at least once a month, if not twice a month, to get us to this point today. And then I think, as Jim pointed out, one of the most important factors is going to be the community input, which everyone will have that opportunity. If we approve this with the selected firm today, they have a lot of experience in engaging the community, so I think that'll be a tremendous asset to get public input as we move forward in this process. And what we really want is we want the community to be excited about a new library and not some controversial project. We want everyone to be excited about it, excited enough that they show up at these input sessions and provide some public input so that everybody feels like they're a piece of this project, because it's a huge project for Williamsburg. I was happy to be a part of the committee, and again, I think they put a tremendous amount of work into it, and Jim's expertise helped us along the way, and that's what he's here for. So I'm really looking forward to us making a decision and moving this project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Barbie, Ms. Ramsey, anything
Yeah,
you want?
I just have a few comments, both to reinforce what Jim and Pat said, is that I think the most important thing here is that we're getting a new library. And we're all very excited, not only about the process and how everything will be unfolded, but the fact that we will have a 21st century library to serve this community. And I am thankful to the library staff who are members of the evaluation committee, along with representatives from the library board and the Friends of the Library, because they bring the expertise of what's needed and required particularly for the programming. And as Jim said, that we received 3 proposals. All 3 of them met the needs of the RFP and are competent firms, and we were very pleased to get such high-level proposals. But one did set itself apart, and if you think of like a best value determination in terms of cost, design, responsiveness, ability, and offering of the firm to come back and provide public input, I think that this is the right way to move forward. And those of us on the evaluation committee got a sneak peek as to some of the things that will be discussed and talked about in the public engagements meetings, and I think we'll be very pleased at the opportunities to provide input. And so I'm, thrilled to be moving this forward, and that reinforce that the new library will be here in City Square, so we don't know exactly where, but it will be, and that we had very robust conversations in our meeting to cover all of the topics and questions that came up. So,
Thank you, and thank you both for giving of your time to serve on that committee, and Tim, thank you for bringing your construction expertise to the group, because understanding the dynamics and what's in the different proposals was important from a construction standpoint. So having that and helping us to understand that they were all qualified and able to deliver the product is important for me. I think where we're at today is a culmination of years of discussions and negotiations about, and surveys that were done about the need for a library, where we wanted the library, and I think the community has been very loud and clear about wanting to see a new library in the downtown area. And so this action today to select Oregon to move forward with an interim agreement is an exciting step to bringing all of those efforts to fruition. And as Ms. Ramsey says, this library will meet the needs for the future residents. And if we got 50 years out of this past library, this will take us to 2075. I think only Ayana may be around by then, but so this is exciting. So again, Pat, I don't know, 74 maybe. So thank you again I appreciate all the work that you've done, and Sandy, your team, for helping us get to this point. It's been invaluable, so thank you for that.
so
Ayana, you want to add?
any other questions? So I move that City Council authorize the city manager and city attorney to negotiate an interim agreement with Horrigan Construction for the design of the Williamsburg Regional Library for consideration by City Council.
Second?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Item C is consideration and action regarding the Williamsburg Poet Laureate Program by the Williamsburg Public Arts Council. Ms. Carballa, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, members of City Council. A little over a year ago, the idea of a Williamsburg Poet Laureate program was brought to the city by a community member. It was then given to the Williamsburg Public Art Council for further consideration. The WPAC chair and staff met with this community member, and it became very clear that there was a passion for poetry in Williamsburg. The WPAC and staff then did research to see what other localities might be doing with the Poet Laureate program. I added the definition of a Poet Laureate to the slide because it's a fairly simple and malleable position. For some locations, it's an in-name only position that doesn't hold much other than a title. And in others, it's a very robust program on the verge of being a paid staff member. I will note that the U.S. Poet Laureate position launched in 1937. Virginia has had a Poet Laureate program since 1988. And in 2017, the U.S. started a National Youth Poet Program, naming Amanda Gorman as the inaugural choice. In Virginia, Fairfax County actually has a very robust program as well. So these are some of the examples we were looking to as we went down this path. The WPAC then drafted a program outline, including criteria and a timeline, looking at FY26 as a starting point for the position. The WPAC then facilitated a selection process to identify potential candidates. Before you is a general outline of the program, including the criteria. There's a statement there that pretty much describes what the purpose of this position would be. The city seeks to celebrate and support a poet who can engage new audiences and create new opportunities for poetry to be shared and encouraged. This program is a means to spotlight the City of Williamsburg community through a poetic voice that will champion the arts as a whole. Looking at the position, it would be a 2-year term beginning on the first day of the fiscal year, so July 1st. For each year of their term, they would be paid $1,500 paid by the WPAC budget. And additional funding may be requested to support additional programs or projects during their tenure. On the right, you can see criteria. They must be in the greater Williamsburg area, so not just a city resident, but we're kind of opening that up to the greater Williamsburg area. They must be 18, have a letter of recommendation, present a body of work showing, or that is poetry or poetry-based, be willing and able to promote poetry, and implement an approved project through the program during their tenure, and must actively be contributing to poetry or the literary arts as a whole. The position itself will have the following opportunities and deliverables. Create at least 2 original works on behalf of the city, present a reading of their inaugural poem at an event selected by the city, work with the WPAC to create and execute a project, help build networks and opportunities for poets and other literary, performing, and/or visual artists to create and engage new audiences, and then present additional readings mutually agreed upon by the city and the WPAC. Much of the work, if not all, has already been done by the WPAC, and today we are asking for City Council to formally approve this policy. The inaugural position could be appointed in the coming months, with the position's term beginning on July 1st of this year. Questions?
So I don't know that I have any questions, but I would be interested in hearing from both the council members who serve on WPAC, and, Mr. Vice Chair and Ms. Ramsey, if you. Chair, I know that you all are very excited about this.
Yeah, well, I think the whole committee's excited about it. WPAC, I'll be the first to admit I'm not someone to criticize poetry, but I can tell you, being involved in this process and looking at poet laureate programs, as Ms. Grabala mentioned, in other localities and across the country, it has a really positive impact on the community. So I'm excited to get the program going. As she stated, we've gone through the application process, and that'll be a difficult task because everyone that submitted is excellent. But I think it's going to, not only for programs that they may present in the city, but whatever programs and, outreach to children and get them involved in poetry, I think is going to be a huge asset to the community.
And I would agree, both in not being a poet myself or really understanding it, but I think this represents the city and particularly the WPAC's enthusiasm for expanding the role of public art in the city. We have tackled a number of different things and accomplished a lot in our short tenure, and I think that we have found the community to be responsive to some of the things that we have done. And I think in particular, as we look towards 2026 and all of the different events that will be occurring in Williamsburg and in the area, that this will be even an added opportunity for our poet laureate to be on stage, so to speak. I think we both wish that we didn't have to make a single choice. We'll still talk about that, but excited about it to go forward.
So to the, single choice, it has to be a tough decision. So it's got my mind working on, what the poems may be that would be presented representing the city and what oversight there may be. And so would that oversight be through the WPAC?
Yes, they would certainly, the selected poet laureate would work with staff and the WPAC to ensure that the message is appropriate and approved, yeah.
And for that, so for our discussion on the 2 applicants, Joanna and Robert Curry gave both of them a scenario of, if this happened in Williamsburg, please write a poem as to how you would draw the community together after a natural disaster. And so that gave us an insight into how they might approach it and what the words would be and the tone and things like that.
And I think that's helpful because I remember having this conversation about public art. What is art? What is tasteful? What is tacky? And I'm probably less of a poet than I am an artist, but I'm neither. So I'm glad that WPAC and people that are really engaged in these art forms are still a part of this, so that we can try to put our best foot forward with our arts and with our poems. So, Ms. Crunchier, any?
I really thought, one thought I had was how great it is that this idea really did come from a resident and propose an idea of something that we don't have. And I think it just speaks to you know, the ability, and I'm, of the staff and of the city to really respond and say, hey, like, let's think about that, and I really appreciate the work that went into looking at this and everything that's happened, and I just love that it came so organically from the community, and I think that, you know, on Monday, you know, we learned a lot about different arts organizations in town through the presentation, and thinking about that dovetailing with this particular proposal as well. It makes me really proud that in Williamsburg, we see art as something that really can bring people together and is part of a defining feature of a community. And I think it's so important not to lose sight of that, because we can all get, you know, really down lots of rabbit holes in a lot of different ways and you know, disagree on what is art even, and all of these questions. But at the end of the day, to be in a place where art is valued and recognizing that it comes in many forms, I think is incredibly special, and it's something that really important to hang on to. So I'm very excited to see what happens and to learn from the inaugural Williamsburg Poet Laureate.
Yes, well, thank you for the presentation. It is very exciting to see this program come to life, and as Ms. Ramsey mentioned, that as we approach 2026 and the 250th, this will be an amazing program to have in place for the exciting events coming up, so thank you.
The only thing I'm going to say is I think both Vice Mayor Dent and I have found that this committee has really gelled over the past couple years. We have representatives from different boards and commissions, as well as representatives from the community, and we all bring different strengths and weaknesses, interest, and backgrounds to this collective group to help put art more at the forefront. And not only, as Stacy was saying, is it nice to see art be so valued, but to recognize it as an educational tool and an economic tool and driver as well. So excited about it. So with that, I move that City Council approve the Williamsburg Poet Laureate Program to be administered by the Williamsburg Public Art Council.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kerntier?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to item D, consideration and action regarding proposed resolution number 25-03, amending the budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Director Damon.
Good afternoon, and I had to chuckle at myself a little bit because there is an error in the agenda item. You know, right now I'm in FY25, right, and I'm budgeting for 26. The first paragraph should be that you reviewed the Tourism Development Grant Review Committee's recommendation for FY24 grants and appropriated them. And the second paragraph should read that we're now asking for their recommendations for FY25 to be approved and appropriated. And that is for the Colonial Williamsburg Arrival Center and some funding for the an entertainment venue for FY25, and the resolution is correct in terms of fiscal years. So we recommend that funding be appropriated consistent with the recommendation, and
It seems pretty straightforward. I don't have any questions. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Questions?
Motion?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-03, amending the FY25 adopted budget to appropriate grant funds for the second year of the TDGRC recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kerntier?
Aye.
Okay. Item E on the agenda is consideration and appointment of boards and commission members.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
So I move to appoint Cash Earhart as the Tourism Development Grant Review Committee representative on the Williamsburg Public Art Council for an unexpired term ending June 30, 2025, and appoint Elaine Macbeth as the Economic Development Authority representative on the Williamsburg Public Art Council for an unexpired term ending June 30, 2025.
Second?
Ms. McKay, Ms. McKay?
Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Just a reminder, there's boards and commissions available, seats available if anybody wants to sign up for one, so tell a friend. I don't believe we have anything for no closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. We're adjourned.